Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by thelines.com. I'm your host, Nate Weitzer, flying solo today. My co-host, Josh Lander, is flying home from Europe, so I will be bringing you our player props video solo. I'll also put up 2 game videos. As we promise each and every weekday, we will get those 2 game videos and the player prop pick out to you, rain or shine, one host or 2. So those are up. If you'd like to subscribe to the Lines page, you will find them up on YouTube later today, like the Magic and the Clippers. So looking ahead at the player props here on a 7-game slate, I'm going to open things up with Trae Young, 34.5 points and assists. It's a tough matchup on paper against the Bucks, but I don't think it really matters what matchup you're talking. That's a little bit low for Trae Young, and he hasn't necessarily been flummoxed by the Bucks at all. In his last 4, he's averaging 35 points per game. And then, a guy who basically is a threat to lead the league in assists every year, averaging also 9.5 assists, shooting 51 and 47% from deep, 100% from the line, 31 for 31 in those 4 meetings with a 35% usage rate. So he brings it against the Bucks. That's for sure. He had 42 points on 15 for 32 shooting in a trip to Milwaukee a couple weeks ago, and now the Bucks are without Jrue Holiday. I mean, he's pretty much ruled out. Giannis is coming back, and they do still have solid wing defenders in Javon Carter, Wes Matthews to throw at Trae, but one of those guys has got to be on DeJounte Murray now, so that opens things up for Trae to distribute, to score, do what he does, and even against Javon Carter teams, I mean, he has not really played a lead role on either of these teams, but just looking at his last 6 against the Suns and Nets, Trae has double-digit assists. The Bucks just gave up 9 assists to Tre Jones of the Spurs without Jrue Holiday out there. They have a 114 defensive rating their last 3 without Jrue Holiday. They have a 114 defensive rating without Jrue since the start of 2021 versus 110 with him. So they're a little bit more vulnerable. We should see more points than you might expect in this one with Giannis back out there, more free-flowing. And Trae, the home road splits are always a concern, but this year he's actually scoring more on the road thus far, 28.5 points per game in fewer minutes. Same usage rate, about 35%. So DeJounte not cutting into that usage that much. It's about the efficiency, and he's hitting 36% of his attempts from 3 on the road and still getting to the line 9.5 times a game. Despite those rule changes, he still finds a way to get points. If you had to break it up, because the odds aren't great on 34.5 points assists, it's minus 120. I think I kind of like the assists at plus 100, 8.5. Although Milwaukee does a good job of limiting team assists recently, they've been vulnerable. Like I said, 39 points to Shai Gilgeous the previous game without Jrue Holiday. So I think Trae gets his one way or another. The under I'm going to throw in here is Jaden Ivey with the Pistons hosting the Raptors. It's 17.5 points for Jaden, and I think minus 102 at FanDuel to go under that. And his prop is up because he's faced the Celtics in 2 of his last 3 games. The Celtics are just playing shootouts over and over. They have such an efficient offense that and not a great defense right now that the other team their stats are inflated. He in 2 of his last 3 coming against the Celtics now, Ivy averaging over 18 points, shooting 50% from 3. In his first 10 in his NBA career, he averaged 15 points, shot 31% from 3. And he's facing Toronto, which is not the same kind of defensive dynamo maybe without Fred VanVleet or Pascal Siakam, but they still have plenty of good defenders out there. Gary Trent, Malachi Flynn, Otto Porter Jr. should play a lot of the backcourt minutes. OG Anunoby could switch on to Ivy at times. And then you've got rangy bigs like Chris Boucher, Scotty Barnes, who can make life difficult going to the rim. If his shot's not falling from 3, he could have a tough time scoring in this matchup. Nick Nurse, one of the best game planning coaches out there. So I'll trust the Raptors as a team to limit Ivy. They need to snap out of their skid here. Injuries be damned without VanVleet. And they're favored by 5 here in Detroit. So the expectation is they hold Detroit's offense down in general. And that just means less production for a rookie shooting guard who's not, the first or really second option on this team. I like the Clippers in Houston, and I like Reggie Jackson to help keep their offense afloat here after a really rough start to the year. The Clippers' offense has kind of come alive in their last 3, and they've won 4 of their last 6, including one against the Rockets. In that game, I mean, in those back-to-back games against the Rockets, Reggie shot awful. 6 for 22 from the field, 0 for 6 from 3. Still got 6 for 6 on the line at the line and had 18 total points. And last year he averaged 18 points a game against Houston. So there's room for positive regression here. I mean, we know he can score in this matchup. We know the Rockets are not stopping anybody. They allow the most assists per game and 7th most points to point guards right now. And Reggie, with John Wall likely to sit with load management, should see ramped up usage. So for him to get over 14.5 points, I don't think is that tough. The assists are at 5.5 if you feel like that's a good option. I don't hate it, even though he's had limited peripheral stats his last few games. He also averaged 8 assists per game in those matchups with the Rockets last year. And you just look at the usage when Wall sits, or the production, 18 points and 7 assists in 36 minutes against Cleveland when Wall sat. Then Wall played against the Lakers, but Reggie loves playing the Lakers. He had 14 points in 24 minutes. So you would imagine more production there if Wall was not out there for half the game, essentially running the team. And then Wall had a 27% usage rate in their last loss against Brooklyn on Saturday. Reggie went for 6 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists in 33 minutes. So the playing time is there. Brooklyn's been playing amazing on defense since Jacques Vaughn took over. So now I think we kind of see him ramp up in a much easier matchup against a tanking Rockets team. And I'm just going to cap things off with Mason Plumlee over 8.5 rebounds. This is mostly just like a necessity play that the Hornets have nobody else to go in there and bang with all these Magic bigs. They play such a giant lineup. They allow 14 rebounds per game to centers, which is below average. They're actually a really good rebounding team. 8th in rebounds is Orlando, but 17th in defensive rebounding rate for opponents. And they miss a ton of shots. They're not necessarily lighting it up on offense. Slow half-court team. Plumlee had double-digit boards in 6 of his last 8. He's been playing a lot more, 28-plus minutes per game, averaging 10.5 boards, 10.5 points in that span. He did not have much production in the first matchup against Orlando. I think they have to switch things up here in order to compete. And like I said, with that Orlando offense, it goes cold down the stretch often. They're 29th in fourth quarter scoring, 22nd in the third quarter. I expect Orlando to win this game for sure and potentially pull away early. But if it is a close game, Plumlee should be out there late. We saw him get 15 boards in an overtime game against the Heat. And Charlotte's only plus 1.5. So Vegas thinks they can make this one interesting down the stretch. And their best chance to do that is to play their only real true center right now and try to limit the big Orlando guys down low. So that is all the time we have for you in this one. Follow along with us each and every weekday as we bring you 2 game videos and the player props. We see you next. Happy betting.